All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Excited to have you join us for today's conversation on the executive lens, which is designed to be a comprehensive review on today's headlines and hot topics and what it means for business leaders and the future of their organization, particularly through the lens of operations, sales, and leadership. And I'm excited to be joined by an amazing panel today with their own specialties. You're not just going to hear me talk today. So first up, we have Shanté Smith-Daniels, who is the fractional chief operating officer and founder of SSD Consulting. And she will be providing us with the operations perspective for this conversation. And we also have Rich Laster, who is a fractional chief revenue officer and the founder of growexpand.com. And so Rich is going to be giving us all the sales goodies. And if you haven't met me, if this is your first time seeing my face, I'm Julia Rock, keynote speaker on burnout and leadership, and I'm the founder of Rock Career Development. And I'll be here to add my leadership razzle dazzle. So this is meant to be a casual, informal conversation. So please feel free to drop your thoughts and comments in the chat and let us know where you're watching from. We want to know where in the world you might be and where you're tuning in from. But enough of the housekeeping, enough of the preamble here. Shanté and Rich, how y'all doing?
I'm doing well.
Feeling good. Feeling good. Happy to be here.
Feeling good, feeling great. So let's go ahead and just get started. And y'all know I'm not gonna have this super formal. But we started this discussion kind of when we talked a little bit about Robert F. Smith's comments that were on CNBC a couple of weeks ago, where he was talking about kind of the future of AI and some of the job displacement. But let's be for real, like right now, like AI is in the headlines every single day, right? It's who's going to lose their job, who's going to lose their company, what's going to happen to productivity. And so I think that there's this dichotomy of, all the excitement around what AI can do and transform business. But then it also, there's this angst that's being built up about what it actually means for organizations and their employees. So I want to get into the conversation around, like, first up, like, is it real or is it hype? Especially when we think about the return on the investment with AI. Like, everyone's like, it's going to do everything. It's going to cure everything, right? And it's like, is it though? And so, Rich, I want to kick it to you first. Like, the AI promise of sales, right? Like, we're going to do more sales. We're going to sell more stuff. And versus what's happening. I want to get your thoughts on that.
The answer is yes and no. And the answer is yes, because AI does fast forward and make more efficient and easier the ability to get tasks done. What it is not is the second coming of Jesus Christ. It is not this do your work for you. It will not effectively do that. It has to be checked and rechecked. It knows only what you have programmed it to know. It can access large language models, but for your business specifically, unless you are okay plagiarizing what it's telling 2.3 million other people, it's not going to hit the nail on the head. So we're looking at a case where the marketing isn't matching what's in the packaging with a lot of the AIs that we're seeing on the market today.
And I guess, but before we move on from there, I guess I'm just wondering, because there's salespeople, and we're going to get to this later, but there's salespeople who are feeling like, okay, should I be embracing this tool all the way, or or is it a competitor for me? And so I just want to hear a little bit of that. I know we're going to talk about workforce later, but like, how should salespeople be looking at this, especially today, right?
That's a great question. So the corporate salesperson, the sales manager, sales leader, sales trainer, chief revenue officer, VP of sales, all of them need to understand that AI is safest in their business in email sequence development for their CRM and report processing, management, production, and development from their CRM. These are two things that we build in to CRMs for our clients, but it's never going to close a deal for you Because in the world of business to business sales, the personal touch is more needed now than ever, since everyone is hypersensitive post-COVID.
I love that, because, you know, I'm just thinking about every time you call somebody, there's a machine that you're talking to, and then you look online and everything is AI generated, and it's just like, is anything even real anymore? So I love the idea of like, we are going to need human touches here. We can't just be everything's a bot, everything's AI. So I love that. And so Shanté, let's get into it when it comes to operations. You and I have had a gazillion conversations about operations, processes, how do we get these organizations together? But I'm wondering, from an AI perspective, you know, will AI create more problems for operations, or be the holy grail of streamlining the processes and organizations?
Well, it depends, right? So it really depends on your operational foundation. So if the current operations you have is running smoothly and streamlined, it can be your holy grail. But if you have poor data, it's insufficient, you have outdated CRMs, you're not getting all the information you need, adding AI on top of that is going to cause a hot mess. So it really depends on where your organization is when you're bringing in that AI. And I think a lot of organizations get AI happy and want to implement AI because someone sold them something. Maybe Rich sold them some, you know, working for some AI B2B situation. And so they get really happy and they want to put that AI on top of a broken foundation, and it just causes a lot more problems.
Man, I'm thinking about just even my time in corporate when we've implemented new software. And it's like, but the foundational data that's being fed in was trash. And so the output we got, the reports and all the type of stuff, is like, well, we can't use this, no way. So I love the idea of like, hey, we've got to get the foundation right. And I guess for those who are listening, Shanté, when you think about trying to maybe get ready for AI, like saying, hey, if someone's like, okay, well, how do I get my life together and get my foundation together? What's one thing that you would say about that?
I would say audit your current situation. And that's one. I'm gonna give you two. Why are you incorporating AI into your organization? Like, what's the strategy behind it? What are you trying to implement? What are you trying to improve? And then once you know those two things, then you can go from there.
And I think that you hit the nail on the head. Like, what is the plan, right? Like you said, people see the shiny new toy, and it's like, I want to implement it. We're like all big kids, like, oh, the new shiny thing, I want to try it, but there's no game plan. So they're hopping from tool to tool, process to process. And so, you know, and I don't know, Rich, if you've seen that even with sales, with some of these new tools, like where let's just try this new thing that came out. I don't know if you're seeing that too.
I am. We are in an era, thanks to TikTok. Thanks, TikTok. Not. We're in an era where people want to do as little as possible for the maximum possible return on investment. And they think that AI is that magic investment. And it isn't. It is a helper. Now, Google just launched its quantum machine. So, you know, we look at that and we say, ooh, this isn't going to be connected to AI, is it? But Robert Smith is right. I mean, when we look at Robert Smith and who he is globally, he is a private equity firm CEO. They invest in companies that are successfully scaling and looking to enter new countries or to ramp up into new markets aggressively, or to exit, to position to exit, to go initial public offering. So when he says, yes, AI threatens to take your job, what I hear is that if you leaned back during the Great Resignation a few years ago, instead of leaning forward and learning how these tools work, how they can aid and support you and what you're doing, then you're probably going to be fixing the robot that serves me my French fries in 5 years. And I agree with that. In sales, we're seeing the same thing. A lot of founder-led sales organizations these are the 5 to 25 size companies. They're trying to figure out, can this do sales for us because our sales sucks? Well, to Shanté's point, you have absolutely no strategy in place, right? Your process is, I'm awesome. I'm going to pray, hope, and make a few phone calls a day until I get those 3 no's, and I'm pissed off, and now I want to go find something else to do. It's really about strategy, working that strategy, and leveraging AI to make that strategy more effective, not so much easier.
Man, and as I tell people, hope is not a strategy. So for whoever's listening, hope is not a strategy. If you're praying and hoping and you're looking at the crystals and hoping that things are going to come together, it's not a strategy. And I'm glad you talked a little bit about strategy.
Don't tell Jesse Jackson that.
Lord. You out of pocket. But we're going to talk a little bit about strategy from a leadership perspective. I love that you both brought that up, because I think when it comes to AI, right, like, and organizations don't have a strategy, then they're underestimating kind of what's required to actually get this thing to happen. Because trying to implement all of these new tools and all of these new programs, there's change management required. It's not like it's just plug it into the wall and off it goes. And especially when you may be displacing some of your employees for this, there's a lot of change management and communication that has to happen. And it's just, in a lot of cases, it's not happening. And then that we think about some of the training that's required. And organizations without a strategy, they're not thinking about what training is required, how they're going to manage the knowledge around these tools, who may need to upskill to make sure these tools are sustainable. And so I feel like there's a lot of kind of leadership effectiveness that's required in order for the tool to be successful. It's not just your tech teams or your ops teams or what have you. It's really the leaders all the way through the organization, from the C-suite on down, who have to think about, if we're going to really go in this direction and lean in, as you said, Rich, lean into this new technological innovation, quote unquote, because AI has been around for a while. Like, how do we make sure that it's a seamless transition for us, as seamless as we can make it? How do we limit the disruption to the organization, and also limit the disruption to the customer, right? If the customer has been used to a personal touch and everything's handwritten or customized, and then now they're going to get some sort of generated thing, how do you make sure that transition for the customer is easier? And so all of that, I think that it ties back to leadership and the fact that they don't have a strategy. They're hoping. We're rolling the dice, we're gambling and seeing what happens. And so,
right. But there's a major thing you just touched on, which is why they need you, right? We can't just hand them a copy of Carol Dweck's mindset and say, okay, read this and try to change. No, they actually need, like, rock career development, which is they need to not misunderstand that this is about getting the executive suite out of that make more money as cheaply as possible framework and glance and purview of their organization and their people. It's about because I've seen you work, right? It's about the way you take that executive and their mindset where they are and get them on track for where they need to be in order to go lean successfully. It's not just chopping heads and minimizing payrolls and to increase efficiency. It's that rock thing you do, right? So you need to, like, spend some time on that, because AI can't do that ever.
Right. And I think that's a huge piece of the process. It's the mindset, and, like you said, going from here to there, right? You just, because when people hear the idea of artificial intelligence, it's like, oh, we're going to be able to chop all these heads. We're going to be able to reduce our workforce by 50%. We're going to be able to have all this profit to show our shareholders. But there's no thought as to, how are we going to achieve that? What happens after we let all these people go? If you haven't properly absorbed the knowledge from the people who are leaving, if you don't have the aftercare for the implementation, if your leaders are not prepared to manage the technology and the people who are left, all of that is required for this to be successful. So I really appreciate that. that call out there, Rich, for sure. And so let me stay with you for a little bit there, Rich, because we're going to continue to talk about workforce. So as we think about these organizations, like, oh, we're going to chop all the heads, right? Everybody's got to go. It's like a fire sale. Everything must go except for the technology. So what would you say to organizations and their sales teams right now? Like, do they need to shift their skills in some way? Like how do we make sure that the sales folks are able to retain their employment in a situation like this?
That's oh my God. I'm not going to get like all hype and lose it right now, but that's the question. So when companies want to go lean, economic indicators are screaming, you need to tighten the belt. Inflation, real inflation, the inflation that you see in your books is double digits, which means you need to have revenue growth that's double digits plus 5 to 10% to consider yourself profitable. Or lower payroll doesn't get that done. More effectively connecting with the people that you add value to. What that product that started your company and got you that $2 million, that $10 million, that $20 million level, that magic, you need to get back to that. And that's not about chopping heads. That's about sitting down and having a come to Jesus moment and saying, this is what we do. We've got the pretty colors, and my God, the website looks great, but nobody really understands that we exist to change lives in the business world by adding one specific value. Yeah, sure, we can cross-sell you, we can upsell you, but we add one value, and marketing needs to understand that because marketing needs to effectively communicate it. And marketing and sales need to be best friends. I mean, best buds ever, right? Because marketing and sales need to work together on the creation of the email outreach, on the call scripts, right? Because every conversation, I want every conversation of anybody in the organization centered around the value proposition. How do we deliver value? Everything sales and marketing does should be centered around that unique sales proposition. What's that one thing that people love us for? Because that's the one thing you have to sell more than anything else. Then you cross-sell and upsell. As for sales teams, when do you cut them? When do you keep them? If they are capable of communicating value and getting on that call or in those meetings or networking and trying to help, they understand how you help and they're trying to help, keep them. They're coachable.
Yeah.
If this is their first job out of college and they learn to dial the phone for dollars. No.
Yeah.
Wrong economy.
Right. And one of the things that you mentioned about kind of think about what we do well for an organization is like, hey, what's the one thing? What's the problem we solve? I think back to my time in oil and gas and when I was in the chemical space. And when, you're selling certain types of petrochemicals, rubbers, plastics, whatever, and being very specific about this is what our products do, and that the salespeople, like hearing them talk through it, it was almost amazing to watch. It's like, man, they know this product in and out. I'm like, they could sell water to a well. Like it was, and so I feel like AI can't replicate that. Right? Maybe they can improve the sales scripts, but that touch and that ability to have a command of the product and answer questions like in real time, I just don't think that technology can replicate that. I think it's a tool. So I love that. I love that perspective. We do have a comment here. I want to from Will. This technology is an opportunity. If it's true that AI won't take your job, but a person who knows AI will, how can we empower and inspire people to think about how to leverage technology to accelerate our learning, increase efficiency, and transform our business and our lives? I love that because that's actually a good segue for you, Shanté, thinking about from an ops perspective, right? Knowing that if you implement this on a poor foundation or people who aren't knowledgeable, that this is just going to exacerbate the problem. How do we actually leverage this in a way to make sure that we're not compounding issues, but actually increasing efficiency with our workforce?
Right. So that was a great comment, actually, because like you said, like automating a broken process is just going to cause confusion and chaos, and it's going to upset your workforce. So to a person who did the comment, to his point, what you want to do is show your workforce like why we're implementing this, what's our strategy, and then showing them how to work with AI, right? Honestly, I can't say it won't replace someone's job, but there's opportunities for people to train and get upskilled on AI. And when you're implementing that in the business, you know, you can be on that foundational side, you know, making sure the data is correct, making sure your CRMs are updated, making sure you have all the information you need to go into that learning model to be successful. And I think another thing when businesses bring in AI, like, how are you going to measure success once you bring it in? Like, you just going to let it go on autoplay and like Terminator comes out? Like, who's watching this to make sure, I mean, you know, not Terminator, but who's watching this to make sure it's doing whatever you set in your business to do? So that's another way you can start upskilling your team to actually learn AI, look at the data, measure it, make sure it's actually doing what you want it to do. Because as we know, AI is wonderful, but it's only wonderful based on what we give it.
And I think you hit the nail on the head with the measurement piece, right? Because we're saying that, oh, it's going to cure, you know, it's going to cure world hunger, cancer, and all the things, right? But we don't have a measurement of that. So we don't know how much we're spending. We don't know how much, if we've really improved times, because I've seen technology implementations over my career where it's like, wait, this is actually taking me longer to do than before we implemented this thing. Can we go back to the old thing? Right.
Don't you love that?
You get frustrated, like, wait, who agreed to this? No one asked me, right? And so I love the idea, Shanté, of like measuring it to make sure that we're getting the bang for the buck, and that comes with having people who are skilled on the tools. And so to your point, and I want to talk about this from a leadership standpoint too, that we will lose jobs, right? There are some jobs that will just be automated. But here's where I get frustrated. I think that, you know, people assume that employees are stupid, or they don't know that, hey, technology is coming. Most people know that, hey, if I'm in a job that's completely data entry driven in 2025, it's likely that my job is going to go away. I mean, people just have that awareness unless they're living under a rock. And so my frustration is that there's just no communication about that. Right. Like you can, you know, that the person's here today and then it's like the jobs are getting cut tomorrow. It's like, well, wait a minute. I mean, I didn't have a chance to plan or think or anything. And organizations aren't giving employees that chance to upskill, like you mentioned, Shanté. Like, they're not giving them the chance to say, hey, these are new tools that you may want to learn. Here are some certification programs that we were able to get a partnership with, and it's low to no cost. And so here's how we want to set you up for success in the future. I think that's my frustration, is that there's just not enough communication about what's going to happen to the workforce. People are reading the tea leaves. So the idea that everyone's confused and they don't know that anything is coming, by and large, that's just not accurate. I think it's more so that people are feeling hurt and blindsided by the fact that organizations that they've dedicated their entire careers to, you know, that now they're being told, yeah, thanks so much for the memories. Here's your plaque. You know, don't let the door hit you on the way out while you take your boxes, right? I think that's where people are having the indigestion about this. I don't know.
I want to say, I'm gonna go back to what we first started, is what's your strategy, right? So I think a lot of times organizations implement AI with no strategy, and I feel like, especially like purpose-driven organizations, if they would have thought that out and figured out how to implement that in the strategy, with their strategy, or what the strategy is for implementation, that makes it easier on the workforce, right?
Right.
It's not like tomorrow we're putting in AI and we're cutting all these jobs. It's more of a conversation, implementation. And then on the ops side, like, people got a lot of stuff in here, right? Like, you have someone that's been in a position 10 years, they have a lot of information. And so on the ops side, well, if you have good ops anyway, you should already have that documented. But if not, you definitely have to get it documented if you're doing AI. And I think that process of AI and strategy also brings like peace of mind to your workforce. Like, okay, this is where the company's going. This is what they're doing. We're setting up for this.
And I want to add something to that, where you talked about, you know, making it easier on the workforce. It also allows you to maintain trust, because people wonder why their employees are leaving right now. Like, I can't believe it. Everyone's so shocked and chagrined that people are quitting, but it's because a large portion of this, and when I talk to my clients, is that your employees no longer trust you. Right. They're seeing that they can be here today, gone tomorrow in a very callous fashion. And even no matter how long they've put in work, no matter how they've performed, they literally could be gone tomorrow. And so with that lack of loyalty, that you want them to be loyal to you and you don't have any loyalty to them, that's where the lack of trust comes in. And so this communication during a major transition of, hey, we're going to implement new tools, we're going to have AI, replacing some of these roles, no communication around that also drives a lack of trust and then creates more impact on the workforce. Okay, so let's step ahead here, keep us rolling. So we've talked a little bit about strategy, the impact on the workforce, a number of different things. So for the business leaders who are listening right now, and they're thinking about, okay, well, how do I actually get my organization ready? I hear what y'all saying, appreciate all the insights, but what do I actually need to go and do or assess at this point to make sure my organization is ready? And so Rich, I want to start with you. When you think about from a sales perspective, you've got sales leaders and CROs who are listening, and they're like, what are we supposed to do now? How do we make sure that we're ready to implement tools like this?
Well, I think we've done a good job covering it. I think Christy Williams' comment is really something worth digging deeper on.
Mm-hmm.
Every business offers a product or a service. You business leaders that we see, few business leaders, I'm going to say too few, are focused on how they help building the goodness into the product, not just the packaging, right? Because I can teach you how to sell a thing, but Christy Williams' comment is poignant for me because retention and user experience are so much a part of a sales role, and amateurs never talk about it, but it's so much a part of a sales role because if I close a deal on January, I need that person happy because in the CRM, I already scheduled a time 30, 60, and 90 days out to touch them and try to sell them something else. There are cross sells and upsell opportunities. I sold them our key product. I sold them our key service. Woo! I made my commission, but I want to make more commission. Look, that's how I make money, by driving revenue for the company. So your chief revenue officer in their RevOps, if they're getting lost in RevOps and they're not holding marketing and user experience and customer service accountable, you have, Julia Rock, you have some silos in your organization, which is a leadership failure, right? That is when you need Shanté and Julia to come into your organization and get you out of that seat for a minute, take you down and walk your production floor, and remember why the hell you're in business. Yeah. Then we can sell. I can sell that all day. But for salespeople to have success, no, AI can't do my job. There's no way an AI understands what an audible sigh means, right? That's a time to be quiet in sales. I don't react to that. I'm here to listen. What follows is it's going to be everything. AI, I've tested this with the 3 AIs out there that say they do sales. The AI immediately responds, was that a question? No human's going to do that.
Right.
So it's really like, thanks for that comment. It's really about getting back to how you help. COVID made everybody sensitive because everybody was stuck in the house. We came out of COVID and there was a great resignation.
Right.
Then we come into this economy. My God, people are beside themselves. You want the money, you want to get to the bag, but the way to get to the bag sustainably is by delivering quality. That one thing, great book, by the way, The One Thing. That one thing you do better than anybody that you can deliver on day in and day out without getting fed up, frustrated, or just straight Mr. T angry. Do that. Master it. And if you need help selling it, call me. But do that.
I love that. And on, for those who are listening, if you do need help with your sales teams and sales infrastructure, Rich is your person. So please take note of that. You can contact him after the live stream. But one of the things I wanted to kind of summarize from what I heard you say, Rich, is that if the organization wants to be ready, they themselves have to know why they're selling what they're selling and what they do well, and then let the AI tools and processes and programs help to enable that. But it's like they have to get back to the basics and being able to read the customer and honestly, to your point, right? Everyone's always chasing the new customer, but the jig is you should be expanding business with your current customers, right?
Hello.
I mean, and that's what it seems like. Like, you know, everyone wants the new, but if you're smart, you can expand and deepen the relationships with your current customers and make a boatload of money.
Talking my language.
Man, and so Shanté, let me ask you. So we've covered a lot of ground already, but when you think about additional readiness in this process, you know, any, you know, for ops folks within an organization, like what is it that they need to do to make sure as they're building the foundation, if there are any additional tactical steps as they are auditing their processes, kind of talking to folks, any additional thoughts around that?
So I'll say this. I want them to pretend their organization is a gift. And we're going to put it in a box and put a pretty bow on it. They're going to give this gift to someone. When someone takes this bow off, is a whole bunch of stuff going to jump out the box and scare them to death? Or is it going to be a neatly packaged presentation, beautiful, smells fresh?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the best gift ever. Or are they going to say this is trash? So, and people in organizations know how their ops is. It's either a nice presentation or it's trash. So to me, that's the foundation. And I don't like saying trash, but you know what I'm saying.
I mean, facts are facts, you know what I mean?
So as a founder, I would say if you have 3 or 4 different systems you're pulling data from, you're not ready for AI. I would say if you don't have your processes documented to where that lady who's been there 10 years, she can go on a sabbatical for 6 months and her department can still run well. If that's not in place, you're not ready for AI. So I think that's pretty simple on the ops side.
Man, and I think that that's the piece that people lose sight of, especially with having process documentation. One of the things that I have seen in organizations myself is that you go into a team and it's like, okay, well, Julia, this is the process. Okay, well, where's the procedure documentation or the desk documentation or something to follow? And it's like, oh, we don't have that. It's like, oh, of course you don't. Okay, so now we're trying to figure out what to do. And so because the question is, if you don't have it documented, what are you going to tell the tool, right? There's going to be 4 different, you've got 4 people on the team. It's going to get 4 different sets of instructions because there's no standardization. There's no clarity. So I love that. It's like, hey, if you don't have it documented, so for those of you who are listening, if you don't have it documented before you want to go spend all this money and give Sam Altman and all these people all your AI coin, it sounds like you need to make sure that you need to call Shanté and get your processes in order. And to round that out, just thinking about the documentation and just, you know, and knowledge management, I think about the overall culture in an organization. Like, are you ready for technological innovation? Are you ready to take this next step, or are you still stuck in 1995, right? Because a lot of companies, they have the person at the top, right? They have the C-suite and they're super energized. They went to some industry conference and they got sold on whatever the thing is, and they come back and they're giddy about it. And then the rest of the organization below that level was like, what the hell are you talking about? Who finna do that? Right. And so, so you have this disconnect. And so you have to ask yourself, from the top all the way down, is there a culture of, hey, we're ready to embrace change? Are we ready to try new things? And do we have the infrastructure to do that? Implementing change takes a lot of work, whether it's the training. We talked about change management, the aftercare, the sustainment and the maintenance, the willingness to deal with growing pains. Let me sit on that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of organizations, they say that they're ready for change, but then they don't have any room for error. So if people mess up with the new tool, or if something doesn't go well, or if something goes out to the customer incorrectly, now everybody's blowing a gasket, people are getting fired, and it's all of this stuff. And it's like, well, what did you think would happen with a new implementation? You try to minimize risk as much as possible, but nothing is perfect. And so if you're willing to take this kind of risk and make this investment in such a big kind of technological shift, I hope I'm saying the word right here, but making sure that if you're willing to make that shift, that you also understand the risk that's going to come to the processes, to the people, to the customer experience. It's going to be short-lived, hopefully, but if you're doing the right communications ahead of time, you have the right strategy, as you guys both said, you have the right change management plan, you should be able to manage those risks and those growing pains. But a lot of organizations, the leaders want perfection in the midst of a dynamic change, which is like insane, insane. So I would say, I'm sorry, go ahead, Rich.
No, you hit on something that's very, very important. So those members of your audience that are in or adjacent to enterprise or middle market sales know that what you just said is absolutely true where AI is concerned, because AI is the new thing. Historically, in enterprise organizations, when they buy a tool, they're buying it from a company that is also an enterprise level tool company. So it's, well, whether it works or not, well, we know those guys. Our board won't blow a gasket if we use what they offer. But if you come in, so great example, 2011, I'm selling a cloud technology that mirrored something Oracle did, but it was like 23 times better, like literally. I couldn't sell it to save my life. I couldn't sell it to save my life. Why? Because nobody's buying something that doesn't have the Oracle stamp on it that competes with Oracle, because Oracle is entrenched in the organization. So AI is really this anomaly. And you're right, everybody's blowing a gasket because the CEO doesn't play golf with this 23-year-old kid that made this AI. They're not members of the same country club. I can't call you and just make this better, right? So they need someone to blame, because the one thing that does trickle down in this country is the axe. And when the CEO catches hell from the board members, oh, well, everybody else needs to catch it too. Let me share these smaller axes so you can pass them down the ladder. So that's something I think it's out of my wheelhouse. Right? I know the game I play. For me, AI and many SaaS companies, I can't onboard them without a unique sales proposition, without, to Shanté's point, something in that box that when the lid pops off, nobody's going to have a heart attack, right? But at the same time, we have to know the world we live in now. Those days of, well, doing business good or bad with the Oracles and the Salesforces of the world, those days are coming to an end because smaller guys like our company, we're a pipe drive company, like we run circles around them because of the way we implement AI to support sales and sales management and sales leadership to free the humans to actually do the job of communicating how their product or service helps.
I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
And so we're coming to wrapping this up, guys. This has been a fun conversation. I feel like we need to do this again, y'all. We need to do it again. We need to do it again.
Count me in.
Man, we definitely need to have another conversation. But before we wrap up, I just want to kind of round robin here to kind of say if there are any final takeaways and key points that you want to drop before we wrap up. So Shanté, I'll start with you. Just based on the conversation that we've had today, any final words for the business leaders who are thinking about kind of AI and their ops in their organization?
Yeah, so for me, I would say think about your strategy while you're implementing it. And then think about that box, that gift you're about to
visual
pass.
is going to live with me from here on out. That visual is going to
Is
live
a
with
clown
me.
about to pop out, or is it a Tiffany ring? Like, what's in your box, And once you figure out what's in your box, you can go from there with your AI implementation. And then I'll say something to what Julia was talking about. It's really important that you have a culture that's ready to take on this task. Because another thing in operations that I do a lot is like continuous improvement. So that's going to involve feedback from everyone in the organization about how things are working. So my takeaway for everyone is what's in your box.
What's in your box? I love that. All right, Rich, what you got from a sales perspective?
From a sales perspective, AI can help you do a lot of things in your business, but it shouldn't be asked to help you sell snake oil. What you promise, you need to over deliver, right? So get clear on that, right? Get back to basics of why you started this company. Like, have those round tables. I'd gladly be a part of it. Remember why you started the company and who you aim to help, and sell that, because that message will line up with what's in the box and turn into revenue.
I love that. And so, I messed up here. Rich, Shanté, I was supposed to ask you where people can find you online. So Rich, where can people find you online? So if they are having this challenge right now and they're like, I need to talk to the sales dude, where can people find you and connect with you?
Visit richlaster.com. That's a short, quick access to all the things we do and the ways we can help and inform you to increase revenue in your business.
All right. And Shanté, where can people find you, connect with you? If they're looking at their box and like they're a clown about to pop out, how can they connect with you?
So Shanté Smith Daniels, Shanté with the accent over the E. That's me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And then my website is ssdconsultingllc.com.
Awesome. And so I'll just round us out here and say that when it comes to when it comes to leadership, I think transparency is key, and making sure you're communicating effectively. But here's something I didn't talk about earlier, which is courage. Everyone's on the AI wave, like it's going to cure everything, but it may not be working for your organization right now, and you may not be ready for it right now. So as a leader, you have to be willing to say, I don't think we're ready for this. We're probably about 6 to 12 months out, or 12 to 24 months out. So having the courage to navigate this, whether it's that you have to deal with more cultural implementations, getting the knowledge management ready, getting the processes together, be willing to be courageous to say that, hey, we want to do this, but now may not be the time, and your organization will definitely respect you. And so if you're listening and you want to contact me because your leaders need a little bit of help in this area, you can find me right here on LinkedIn, Julia Rock. And also you can head to my website, rockcareer.com, and I'm at the Julia Rock pretty much everywhere. And so with that, I want to say thank you all for listening. Rich, Shanté, what an awesome conversation today. We're going to figure out when we're going to do this again, because we need to, and keep the executive lens going. But I want to say thank you to everyone for joining. Please keep in contact with us. If you do have additional questions that we didn't get to, please feel free to comment on this live stream, or DM us individually, and we'll be happy to get back to you. But thank you guys for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. See you guys.
Thanks for having me.